Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one.
The introduction. Among the cacophony of mundane life, where routine dances to the clock's relentless tick, are threads of darkness lurking beneath the polished surface of suburban bliss. In a tight-knit community nestled at the edge of Pinesborough, a town shimmering with vibrant autumn leaves, a sense of tranquility pervaded the air. Families sipped pumpkin spice lattes, and children raced bicycles down green, leafy lanes, unaware of the gathering storm that would shatter their peace. On a crisp October evening, an ordinary Friday, the veil of normalcy was brutally torn. Jenna Mallory, a 32-year-old teacher at Pinesborough Elementary School, was last seen leaving a local cafe, the fluorescent lights casting a benign glow against the early night sky. As she hopped into her well-loved sedan, a casual wave to barista friends marked her exit, a final sign of warmth and familiarity. Little did they know, this would be the last time the friendly teacher would be seen by her community. Hours turned into restless minutes as Jenna failed to return home. The ticking clock morphed into a sinister presence, echoing the rising tide of panic that settled in the pit of her husband, Mark's stomach. At 10 p.m., after exhausting every possible avenue and frantically calling friends and family, he dialed 911. His voice faltering, thick with fear as he reported her missing. The night wore on, swallowed by uncertainty and sadness. Little did they know that the haunting mystery of Jenna Mallory would arise from the darkness, leaving a crack in the facade of Pinesborough, and revealing the fragility of safety in a world cloaked in ignorance. The victim. Jenna Mallory was not merely a figure confined to the classroom. She embodied the essence of compassion and joy, painting her world with vibrant colors. Born and raised in a town 3 hours north of Pinesborough, she was the beloved daughter of a school principal and an early childhood educator. As a child, Jenna exhibited an extraordinary aptitude for storytelling, captivating her peers with imaginative tales woven from the fabric of her whimsical mind. Her transition to adulthood came with dreams of fostering a love for learning in young hearts. After earning a degree in education, he returned to this quaint town, drawn by the familiarity of home and the promise of shaping young lives. Jenna had the rare gift of patience and kindness, inspiring not only her students but also everyone fortunate enough to cross her path. At the outset of the school year, Jenna was eager to implement a new curriculum that promoted creativity and self-expression. While she meticulously planned engaging lessons, whispers of her enthusiasm reached the ears of colleagues and parents alike. It was no surprise that her students adored her, and even fellow teachers confided in her, seeking guidance in times of uncertainty. Yet beneath the joyful exterior, Jenna stood as a pillar of strength amid a tapestry of struggles in her personal life. Unbeknownst to her friends and family, she grappled with pressures of perfectionism, a relentless pursuit that sometimes left her exhausted. Mark, her husband of 5 years, noticed her increasing bouts of anxiety, and on that fateful Friday, she had expressed feeling overwhelmed. She had expressed feeling overweight. They had made plans that weekend to reconnect. As night turned into morning, the sun's rays illuminated a town unsteady in the wake of Jenna's disappearance, and their hearts. Everyone knew the only antidote to a community's unease was finding the missing teacher, a beacon of hope lost in the shadow. The crime scene. The first glimmers of dawn painted Pinesborough in soft pastels, a stark contrast to the underlying tension brewing within the community. As the sun peeked over the horizon, Mark Mallory's heart sank deeper into despair. He had spent the night pacing the familiar confines of their cozy home, his thoughts entwined with worry and frayed anxiety. When officers arrived at the house, their expressions were a mix of solemnity and urgency, palpable reminders of the possibility that something had gone tragically wrong. At 8 a.m., an officer designated as Detective Harris led the investigation, methodically gathering evidence. Given Jenna's known route home from the cafe, a search radius was set around the town. It wasn't long before they received a tip from a nearby resident who had witnessed something odd the night before: a dark vehicle parked for an extended time frame, lingering under the faint glow of a streetlight. The search team, clipboard in hand and determination in their eyes, headed toward the specified area, oblivious to the horrors that lay ahead. Minutes later, as the investigative team canvassed the neighborhood near the cafe, they arrived at an isolated stretch of road lined with dense thicket on either side. It was here, nestled among the backdrop of sage bushes, that they discovered a harrowing scene that would ripple through the core of Pinesborough. There, partially concealed beneath a pile of leaves, lay Jenna's battered vehicle, its windows smudged with dirt and tires impossibly still. The gleam of afternoon sun glinted ominously off the hood, drawing attention to the now rummaged interior. Inside, on the passenger seat, a tattered paperback fell open to a marked page book on childhood development, her final gesture of hope left in the chaos. As they searched for fingerprints and evidence, Detective Harris noted the absence of Jenna's personal belongings. Her purse and phone vanished as if intentionally erased from existence. The discovery sent ripples through the officers' resolve. Reeling from the implications, they knew their next steps had to be cautiously strategic. The tranquil town they once knew was on the precipice of heartbreak, and the clock was ticking. The question now lingered in the air like a heavy fog. Who would want to harm a beloved teacher, and why? The early investigation. As word spread through Pinesborough about Jenna's disappearance, the community mobilized with a spirit of unity. Fault boards were filled with missing person posters, punctuated by Jenna's bright smile, a gentle reminder that amid uncertainty, hope remained alive. Still, behind the scenes, detectives methodically unraveled the threads of the investigation, sifting through countless pieces of evidence as they endeavored to piece together the fractured puzzle. Detective Harris dispatched officers to canvass the town, knocking resolutely on doors in search of anyone who might have glimpsed Jenna that night. They asked probing questions. Did you notice anything unusual? Were there any unfamiliar vehicle? The responses varied from casual observations to bewildered denial. Most residents were oblivious, transfixed in their serene night routines, utterly unaware of the grim reality unraveling in their midst. Back at the station, Detective Harris reviewed Jenna's recent social media activity. It began with innocent posts, her life punctuated by charming updates about school projects and pictures at family gatherings. Yet, as he scrolled deeper into the archive, he discovered a tinge of discontent woven between the cheerful images comments, hinting at anxiety, pressures both personal and professional. He noted the influx of private messages from concerned friends, urging her to focus on self-care, a touch of vulnerability rarely visible in her public persona. In a parallel thread, investigators combed through surveillance footage from the cafe and along Jenna's usual route home. Flickering screens displayed patrons enjoying their evening, until the distorted video revealed her car weaving through the neighborhood streets at 8:45. Alone, yet seemingly unaware of the danger lurking nearby. There was a gap in coverage, a mere 10 blocks away, where the cameras fell silent. As they pieced together Jenna's timeline, a shadow loomed larger. Someone had seen her. Someone had been watching. And within the backdrop of Pinesborough, the darkness did not simply reside on the periphery of town. It whispered through familiar faces and quiet conversations, a chilling thought that beckoned them deeper into the heart of the investigation. Detective Harris knew they were racing against time, and that the key to unraveling this mystery lay hidden within the fabric of the community itself. The dead ends. With each passing hour, hope began to wane as investigators chased leads that seemed to dissolve into thin air. What had begun as a flurry of activity soon morphed into a labyrinth of frustration. Detective Harris and his team meticulously followed every tip, every potential sighting of Jenna. Yet time proved relentless and unyielding. One particularly cold afternoon, an anonymous caller claimed to have seen Jenna arguing with a man outside the cafe shortly before her disappearance. The officer assigned to the lead interviewed the witness, a local waitress whose shaky recollection painted a troubling image. The man was reportedly tall, with dark hair and a hooded jacket. Searching through databases of known offenders in the area, Harris felt a flicker of hope rekindled. But hope was short-lived. Lists were scoured, suspects interrogated, but each inquiry revealed an alibi, each a redundant refusal. Days turned into week-long stretches, the golden leaves of autumn morphing into the starkness of November. As they continued in pursuit of evidence, detectives undertook psychological profiling, aiming to draw outlines of potential perpetrators. Mark was cooperative, desperate to help wherever he could, but his emotions fluctuated, rage replaced by guilt, dread replaced by fragility. Each session with him took an emotional toll, the burden of unknowing etched deeply on his face. The dead ends materialized like fallen leaves scattered in the wind. Each time a promising clue emerged, it inevitably unraveled upon closer examination. Doorbell video from a neighboring property depicted nothing more than a trick-or-treater wandering aimlessly. The surveillance from a nearby gas station caught Jenna's car arriving minutes prior, yet quickly turned her taillights into fading memories as it drove into the blackness. It wasn't long until the detectives' optimism waned and exhaustion crept into their veins. Desperation increasingly clouded their decision-making. Rumors began to spread like wildfire throughout Pinesborough. Conspiracy theories, whispers of infidelity, family disputes, all framing Jenna's life. Sometimes grotesque context. As uncertainty spread through the community, Detective Harris realized that the mystery surrounding Jenna Mallory was not simply a case of a missing person. It was an unraveling tapestry exposing deep-seated fears about safety and trust. And within this fabric, he knew, lay the clues that could either lead to Jenna's rescue or further plunge everyone into despair. A break in the case. After weeks of searching, despair clung to the air like a heavy fog enveloping Pinesborough. With every passing day, the hope of finding Jenna faded, replaced by an atmosphere of suspicion that seeped into neighborhoods, shrouding friendships with doubt. However, just as the sense of hopelessness began to permeate, a breakthrough arrived from an unexpected corner. It was a Thursday morning when Officer Ramirez, in the midst of reviewing ongoing reports, stumbled upon an overlooked offhand mention of a man who frequented a local gym not far from where Jenna witnessed. The description struck a chord. A tall figure, reminiscent of the one the waitress had spotted on the night Jenna vanished. With renewed vigor, Ramirez presented the information to Detective Harris. The detectives quickly positioned themselves at the gym, a mid-morning Hayden bustling with energy. Surveillance cameras monitored the entrances and exits, a potential goldmine for the timeline they desperately need. It was here, amidst the clang of weights and rhythmic thud of feet on treadmills, that they turned their focus toward two men who fit the description. After observing them for some time, one stood out: a man, Jake Donovan, with dark hair and a penchant for oversized hoodies. An anonymous chit had hinted at issues with women in his past, and as a record emerged, it painted a darker picture. Rumors circulated around town about Jake's temper, unrequited crushes, and near encounters with harassment. Yet another lead to investigate, an opportunity hanging on the precipice of possibility. Checking the gym's records, detectives discovered that Jake had indeed been a regular during September and October, even attending the nights Jenna disappeared. For the first time in weeks, Harris felt a rush of adrenaline surge through him. They were onto something. With a plan in place, Harris rallied his team. They meticulously prepared to confront Jake Donovan with their findings, believing there could be hidden truths lurking behind the casual demeanor of this seemingly unassuming man. As they strategized, they stood on the brink of a new chapter, a chance to peel back the layers surrounding Jenna's disappearance. Suspicion wrapped around Jake like a shroud, but beneath it lay the simmering question: would he be the key unlocking the darkness that had descended upon Pinesborough, or just another voice lost in the wind? The suspect. The chilling air hung thick with tension as Detective Harris and Officer Ramirez stood outside the gym, narrowing their focus on Jake Donovan, who had just exited. Tall and athletic, he possessed an uncanny ability to blend into the shadows of familiarity, yet his presence now radiated suspicion. As he walked toward his car, Harris subtly approached, forcing the detective's training to take precedence over the emotional turmoil roiling inside. "Jake Donovan?" Harris addressed him, eyes locked with the suspect. At the sound of his name, Jake's posture stiffened, a fleeting flicker of something unreadable crossing his face before he settled into a guarded expression. Yeah. "That's me," he replied, a hint of apprehension creeping into his tone. "We need to talk." With that, the detective motioned toward his vehicle. The hum of the nearby traffic juxtaposing the brewing storm of confrontation. The scene felt charged, each moment laden with anticipation, as Harris guided Donovan to the back of the car where they could speak more privately. Seated beneath the sprawling branches of a nearby oak, the conversation began. Weighty questions punctuating the crisp morning air. Harris presented a string of topics: Jake's attendance at the gym, his known interactions with women, and finally, the night Jenna went missing. "You were there that night. Did you see anyone unusual?" Jake's gaze darted to the ground, and for a moment, uncertainty flickered behind his eyes, as if contemplating the veracity of his words. "I was just working out. I do not know what you talk." "Witnesses described seeing you near the cafe on that evening," Ramirez interjected, watching the young man closely. Jake stiffened further, clenched his jaw. "I'm at the gym every night. What's the big deal?" His voice rose defensively, but it gave way to a palpable riptide of nervous energy. Detective Harris leaned in, a calming yet firm presence. "Jenna Mallory is missing, Jake." Shh. She needs help. You know something that's tongue clean. In the throbbing silence that followed, the weight of impending dread hung heavy in the air. The detective noticed sweat beading at Jake's temples, his fingertips drumming nervously against his leg. For a heartbeat, the tension coiled tightly, then unraveled slightly as Jake spoke, albeit hesitantly. I might have seen her. She was in a car, but I didn't do anything to her. I swear. What do you mean you saw her? Harris pressed, sensing a crack in the facade. I ain't think much of it. His voice faltered, hinting at deeper unspoken fears, lingering trauma sewn into the past. That guy? Have you seen him since? A beat of silence passed before Jake shook his head. No way. I know who he was. I just left. But with every word, the detectives felt the gravity of the situation shift. Thus Jake Donovan, entangled in a wider net of secrets, was simply a spectator caught in the maelstrom. As they descended deeper into the maze of Jenna's disappearance, the threads of truth floated precariously above a precarious landscape, teetering on the precipice of revelation. The trial, the small town of Pinesborough, once a portrait of serenity, erupted into a tumultuous landscape as the trial of Jake Donovan approached. As news spread like wildfire, the courtroom became a crucible wherein fear, hope, and a quest for justice collided. Those familiar faces, neighbors and friends packed the benches, charged with an uneasy mix of anticipation and dread. The prosecution's case was built on a foundation of evidence. Jake's troubling history with women, the scrutiny of those fateful hours surrounding Jenna's disappearance, and the testimony of witnesses who had seen him in the vicinity of the cafe. Detective Harris took the stand, recounting the frantic search efforts, detailing the moment Jenna's car was discovered, and relaying Jake's hesitant confession. The severity of past allegations loomed heavy over Jake as the prosecution painted a portrait of a potentially dangerous man, a narrative that clung to the air like smoke from a dissipating fire. Throughout the trial, Jenna's family, resolute in their pursuit of closure, sat silently in their designated seats, their expressions a complex tapestry of sorrow and frustration. They had initially known Jenna as the light that brightened every room, but now they were forced to confront the darkness shrouding her absence, the anguish tethered to each passing day. Jake's defense team, however, sought to dismantle that narrative, positioning him as a victim of circumstantial evidence and misunderstanding. They probed deep into Jake's past, revealing his struggles with mental health, hinting at the lurking anxieties that haunted him. They claimed he was innocent, an innocent bystander, merely caught in the chaotic web of suspicion woven by a town desperate for answers. Witness after witness took the stand. Gym instructors, cafe patrons, and friends. Each testimony layered complexity, but none could deliver definitive proof of guilt or innocence. The trial morphed into a battleground of ideologies. Was Jake an innocent young man dealt a poor hand, or a lurking predator hidden among the townspeople? The climax reached a fever pitch when the jury retired to deliberate. The echoes of whispered conversations filled the courtroom as collective anxiety soared towards the rafters. Days turned into a long stretch of quiet waiting, tension mounting like a tightly wound spring. When the jury finally returned, the room pulsed with expectation. The verdict was announced in a soft, tremulous voice that reverberated through the silence. We find the defendant not guilty. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, unleashing a wave of disbelief and despair. Jenna's family felt a fracture within themselves, the metronome of hope silenced. their reality didn't just stop with a single trial. The reverberations spanned across the community, drawing lines in the sand, questioning both safety and justice. As Jake Donovan exited the courthouse into the brightness of day, the collective shudder skimmed through Pinesborough, a chilling reminder that some mysteries lie shrouded beneath the surface, forever haunting those left behind. Detective Harris, no stranger to the complex interplay of humanity and crime, vowed that Jenna's story would not end here. The search for truth felt as relentless as the changing seasons, a commitment stitched into his resolve, echoing through the heart of a town now irrevocably altered. The aftermath. As the dust settled from the trial, the once vibrant town of Pinesborough wore a cloak of heaviness, an aura of uncertainty that refused to disperse. The echoes of that fateful verdict rippled through the community like stones skipping across a still pond, each ripple deepening the collective unease. Families walked with strained smiles. Conversations dwindled to cautious whispers, and familiar nods exchanged in the streets felt charged with a newfound wariness. For Jenna's family, the aftermath was a bitter grip of grief and frustration. The fierce love once so binding now felt like a suffocating haze, her absence leaving shadows where laughter once reigned. In their modest home, they created a shrine of memories, framed photos capturing Jenna at school events, her smiling eyes a haunting reminder of the life that could have been. Each morning, they awoke with the weight of loss, the inability to reach out, to touch her face or hear her voice, leaving them adrift in a sea of longing. Detective Harris, too, carried the burden of unresolved questions. The hours spent poring over case files morphed into sleepless nights, haunted by flashes of Jenna's smile, the threads of evidence slipping through his fingers like rainy sick. Though Jake Donovan walked free, the specter of guilt seemed to loom, a nagging suspicion that continued to gnaw at the edges of his consciousness. Every corner of the investigation felt unfinished, the detected motives muddy and elusive. Despite the unease, a flicker of resolve spurred forth, ignited by a desire to honor Jenna's legacy. Harris organized community meetings, creating a space where friends and family could gather, share stories, and channel their sorrow into something actionable. They debated ways to improve outreach programs for local youth, to cultivate environments where potential threats could be addressed and dismissed seamlessly as gossip. The mural adorning a community center emerged as a testament to Jenna's spirit, a colorful tapestry illustrating her passion for education and love for children. It sparked conversations across the town. How could they protect their own? How could they heal as a community? Discussions transformed into initiatives, yielding collaborations with schools and organizations that emphasized awareness and empathy. A year after her disappearance, an annual event was established. The Light for Jenna Candlelight Vigil held on the first day of autumn. In that moment, hundreds gathered beneath an indigo sky, flickering flames casting a warm glow against the chilled, encroaching darkness. They sang songs, shared stories, and stood united for Jenna and countless others, a haunting reminder of the tenacity of hope amid shadows. In the back of the crowd, Detective Harris observed a profound sense of purpose replacing some of the void within him. Beyond the chaos, there was healing steps taken melodically toward progress. A flickering light where darkness had once reigned. For the first time in months, as he witnessed the shift in Pinesborough, he allowed himself to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, there was a way to uncover the missing pieces. bridge the gaps left by loss, and cultivate a future worthy of Jet's spirit. Reflection. As autumn deepened, the vibrant colors that once celebrated the season transformed into shades of gold and burnt orange. For the people of Pinesborough, it was a time of reflection. Detective Harris found himself drawn to the quiet sanctuary of the town's park, where serenity stood at odds with the turmoil of recent events. Seated on a familiar bench, he observed children playing, a fleeting image of innocence that tugged at his heart. The investigations and trial had diverted him from self-care, from confronting his own feelings about the case, which had taken a toll on him, far more profound than he had anticipated. As he gazed across the field, the image of Jenna, the vibrant teacher bursting with passion, played in his mind. He pondered what her laughter would sound like carried on the wind, what she would think of the community's efforts to foster a safer environment. The measures initiated in her name became seeds of change. The vigil for Jenna glimmered like a constellation against the midnight sky, a beacon of hope amid the darkness. Yet the residual pain of her absence reverberated. With a heavy heart, he recognized the reality. He could not escape the feeling that justice often evades those who most deserve it.